Sorry it's taking so long. More than 45 minutes. I had to actually tape this 3 times before I remember that I have to push recording. So now that we're recording, third time's a charm, right? So, anyways, this is an alternator, right? Up here on the top. Up there on the top. It's an alternator, right? It's usually a car part that actually belongs, of course, inside your car. It allows charges of the centrifugal force that is actually being given from the main pulley of the engine to be used with this pulley here to actually allow this alternator to spin, right? So in order to actually take it apart, and the reason why I'm taking it apart is because back in the 80s, when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, I'm still knee-high to a grasshopper, but anyways, when I was younger, we used to have to go to AutoZone and Auto Shack. That's what the fuck it was called back then. Auto Shack. Shack? Because it was cheap parts, and there's still cheap parts. Anyways, so we used to go to Auto Shack and actually pick up rebuild kits for alternators. And we would actually, instead of giving you the alternator and then getting like $40 back for the core, we would actually get a $10 gasket system and keep your own alternator. So anyways, that being said, the way you have to take it apart is you have to actually take this nut off. I don't know why they call it a nut, dude. I just use the words. I just work here, okay? Anyways, once that nut's taken off, which is actually one of the hardest nuts that you have to take off from there because it's pressed at a certain amount, you actually get to take the pulley off. This is what the pulley should not look like ever, right? You see that big old dent, right? I tried to straighten it out, dude, it just wasn't working. So yeah, I went ahead and just changed it from this new pulley that's all beaten up and cut up for the old. So once you actually do that, what you have to do is you have actually 4 different screws that actually come out of the case. These 4 are actually the ones that hold on to the alternator. You can take a look at all the rust and stuff, so you can tell it's the issue with rust on the car. Now, this part is actually pressed, so you have to actually tippity tap with a hammer. Right, so that's going to be the outer case of the actual alternator. It runs on what is called a race, which is basically another piece of metal that allows the friction of that shaft. Once again, I don't make these fucking words, man. But that pilot bearing there, allows that shaft, that metal stick, to go through the process of actually spinning in the same spot constantly, because you got to remember this is spinning at around 8,000 RPMs or 8,000 revolutions per minute, which is really fast. So here's the race that it sits on. It gives it a certain type of space, allows cooling to happen, but usually that is one of the pivotal areas that your alternator fails with, right? So anyways, once you actually take that piece off, put it back in there, don't worry, somebody's going to be happy that I actually did this for them, honestly, because they're going to have to do it anyways, to either recycle or to repair the same alternator. Anyways, that being said, once you actually take that off, you're able to see the insides of the actual alternator a little bit better and can gauge more the process in which the charging happens. So once you actually go through and take off the case, you're able to see there's some cooling fans there that actually bring air into the magnet and into the entire case itself. The reason why is because there's no tolerances there whatsoever, or no spaces in between the magnets. If you can actually move a magnet like I'm moving it right now in an alternator, that means that the actual windings have actually been spent. Once again, I don't make the fucking words, just use them. Yeah. So, anyways, as you see, as I'm spinning there, right? Actually, here we go. Oh, no, there. All right. So, as I'm spinning this, I can't even spin it. It's that actual worn out. There's a magnet that actually spins around inside, right? And as that magnet on the shaft of the actual alternator, as it spins, the outer coil magnet, it gets sent a pulse, like a zap zap. You know, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, because that's how magnets work. They have positive and magnet poles, right? So as it's spinning, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? Something has to actually tell the system that the positive negative needs to be only positive, and it actually has to convert the current. That's why in the back of your alternators, you're always going to see a couple of different plugs, all right? So this one here always runs to your battery, the pole itself. It runs to the battery, and that's what actually gives the battery the energy that it needs to actually recharge, right? Here on the side, there's always going to be plugs, and used to be like 3 plugs, used to be like 2 plugs. Nowadays, it's actually 4 because the computers and the introduction of management systems that actually allow lights to go off or verification of what the status of the alternator is. Regardless, these 4 ports here, they're always going to be positive, negative. It's always going to be a receiving signal or a sending signal. And nowadays, it may actually be a receiving signal as well with the other side, which is the constant, the voltage change itself, the rectification, the rectifier. So this is what's called a voltage rectifier. Got it. Anyways, man. So the reason why it took so long is because the coils, and now that I can actually show you truly what the fuck is up. All right. So all the coils are actually connected to 3 different poles. So all these here on the outside are connected to 3 single wires that are actually inside the bottom part of the actual alternator, right? So we're going to come back to that in just a sec. So the reason why my alternator wasn't working is you can actually tell it was full of actual crust, dust, rust, and those magnets are just not actually pulling enough energy out of all that dank and sickness to actually help out. Plus, at the same time, you can actually tell the striations or the cut marks, circular cut marks, all the way around the alternator, including here in the race. You're able to see actually some damage on the race, the bottom race of the actual alternator bearing. This in itself is the entire shaft. This can actually be changed out as well. It's actually maintained or held by a C-clip or a C-ring, you know, that allows this to freely spin, right? So as this spins freely inside the actual alternator, then you can see the actual motion that it's actually taken each time that the belt does a revolution, right? So as the revolutions go through the shaft, right, like that. So if we're spinning this, then you can understand and realize how you would be able to go through the process of actually spinning a magnet connected inside another magnet to actually allow pulses to go through. So as this puppy spins, right, well, let's say it goes this way, it goes through, you can actually see the plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus in actual full effect as you actually go through the process of spinning. Now you can actually tell that any misalignment will actually throw the spin off and the centrifugal force or centripetal force that is actually being applied with the belt itself. So this is the actual magnet internal shaft. Once again, I don't make the names, I just use them. This shaft is actually connected on either side to the actual coil itself. That actually gives it that pulse or that feed of electricity that it needs in order for it to actually be a magnet and pulse. So as we drop that in there, we can actually now go into the actual inner or the outer coil, the stator. They call it a stator because it stays there and it doesn't go anywhere. And you're able to actually see all that sickening crud that's actually there. Yet another reason why my alternator was actually malfunctioning. It was that time for it to actually be replaced. So if you were to actually rebuild this, what you would want to do is you would want to actually remove all the crust and the striations that you're actually seeing there until it's actually fully clean. In all honesty, the way that this feels inside, there is no coming back for this one. It's totally gone. That being said, I could be wrong. Somebody may actually be able to do it. So now this is where your voltage regulator lives, right? Your voltage regulator, as I said before, it's actually connected to three different things on your coil. The external coil, not the internal coil, right? And that's what actually gives you the zip zap or the energy or the power. And hold on a second, let me put this down so I can. That's pretty long screws. One, two, actually, I'm sorry, that's the longest one. Here's the shortest one. My bad. So it goes 1, 2, and then the third one here. Once you do that, the entire voltage regulator in the case in the back, it actually removes or it gets taken out. Give me a sec. Let me pull it out. There we go. Okay. So rear of the case. All it does is it actually holds a plastic piece in to make sure that it doesn't actually wobble or warble on its way out the back itself. So it just kind of stops it. Right? So there's the case itself. That's where the voltage regulator actually lives. Voltage regulator has actually a couple of different pieces, and as you can see, they actually have these things that are called heat sinks, right? Heat sinks are kind of like fans for electronics, so like that they don't actually get as hot, right? So last thing you want to do when you actually see these fins is actually touch the motherfuckers while the car is running. The shit's gonna be hot. Anyways, that being said, let me take this part off. Hold on a second. The alternators right here. You see these right here? These are actually carbon magnets that actually ride. Well, once again, dude, I don't make this terminology, man. I'm just using it, bro. So don't come at me, man. But they're actually spring fed, you see? Wonk, a wonk, a wonk. Right? And what you do is you actually, you feed those two magnets into the actual body of the alternator itself. So like that, those magnets are actually riding on that shaft. Yeah, yeah, that's what happens, dude. Magnets, they go round and round on a shaft. Anyways, I'm not laughing. On the outside. On the inside, dude, I'm having a riot. Anyways, as you can see, these magnets are actually what give the pulse. Let me pull it out again. There we go. Okay. So those magnets are actually what send the pulse out into the actual rectifier, so that it actually rectifies the correct so it corrects the actual electric pulses that are coming out from right chomp out to don, that's coming from don, right? So the coils are connected here, outer coil, right? The inner coil is connected here in the middle through a shaft, a long cylindrical object, right? And the system then takes all the pulses that are being sent out, right? And they actually feed them through the correct circuits to then output the correct voltage out of the voltage regulator. But hope you like this. If not, then let me know. If you did like it,